chat throughout this session. We are also clearly, as we're saying hi to the folks on. Fixed it. Thanks. This is why we love tech support. Let me try that again. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Skene Teach. My name is Miranda. I'm excited to teach my first Skene Teach workshop. A little bit of housekeeping. We are live streaming this to YouTube as well as here in the studio. We will be monitoring the chat throughout, so if there's ever anything that you want to say, either from the YouTube or from the studio, you can just type that in the chat. As part of the streaming, anybody in our studio, you are welcome to keep your cameras off and your mics off for the duration of the sort of speaker portion. And then we will do a Q&A at the end where we will stop the live stream so we can all come off of our hidden boxes and have some chats and answer some of those questions that might be in that chat box or that maybe you have remembered from the beginning of the presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about portfolios. And I'm trying really hard to not narrate as I share screen. There we go. So today we're going to talk about building your professional package, or how to be your own hype person, which is really important as we're thinking about, as we are artists, as we are freelancers, as we are people who do cool and amazing things. We are our best advocates, but being an advocate for yourself can be really hard. So we're going to practice some of those things and talk about some of the ways that we lift ourselves up and some of the ways that we build structures to lean on that speak for us, right? Which is what our professional packages are. A little bit about me. My name is Miranda Tabasco. We've already talked about that. They, she, he. I am a lighting and media designer primarily. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Theater, Film, and Media Arts at The Ohio State University. You are currently seeing the corner of my office. And I've taught portfolio prep a few years now, for a while, and I've been making them for a very long time. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Goals for today's workshop. First goal is to identify the typical elements of a resume, a cover letter, a portfolio. This is applicable to CVs, to business cards, to anything beyond. And we're going to specifically talk about why we include them. As time changes, as technology changes, as the world changes, the way that we present ourselves and the tools that we use to present ourselves change. Right, the folks who taught me how to make a portfolio, when they made their first portfolio, couldn't imagine what a website was. And now so much of what our portfolios are online. So I am sure that before I am done in this career, they will change in so many ways. So if we know why we include the pieces that we include, then we can adapt as our technology and our tools adapt. Our second objective is to consider effective practices, tools, and processes when we're working and delivering information about our work, right? How do we talk about ourselves? What are some tips and tricks? Both when we are there to speak for ourselves and when our materials are doing the talking for us. And objective 3, we're going to discuss some common questions related to presenting work in person, virtually, or asynchronously, right? When we are there to speak and when we are not there to speak. Keep in mind, and then rule number 1 about portfolios always and professional packages always, is that everybody will have an opinion. I will never forget going into a portfolio review and laying a resume down on the table and having 2 folks walk over to come take a look at it and to walk away with their having like 5 different opinions, right? They would say, one would have an opinion, the other would have an opposite opinion, so the first one would change their opinion. There was this back and forth. It was a bit. I think they should have taken it on the road. They might have. Shout out to Steve Shelley and Kevin Lee Allen for that fun little endeavor. But we're going to take what works and we're going to leave what doesn't, right? Lots of folks are going to say lots of things. I'm going to say a lot of things today. Take what works and leave what doesn't. All right, first off, we're going to look at the purpose of a resume. And for the duration of this workshop, I want you to imagine that you are a book. And you are a great book, right? You are fly off the shelves, excellent literature. If you are a book, then your resume is your table of contents. It is the way that folks are going to quickly identify what chapters are relevant to them, or if this is a book they want to keep reading. So when we think about a table of contents, right, we're thinking specifically about scannability, clarity, information forward, right? You want your title of your chapters to be indicative of what is inside of those chapters, the information therein. You want to be able to flip easily to that page, right? Very helpful for navigating the information moving forward. The first and foremost, the most important piece of information that you can provide is who you are, right? Number one, write your name on the top of your paper, right? We've been practicing that since kindergarten. So make sure that you have an identifying factor. Your name is important. Your job title is important. Contact info is important. How do they find you again? And a website may be important. Asterisk, because maybe not, right? Take what's useful, leave what's not. Not everybody is going to have a website, although having an internet presence is useful. Lots of folks like to Google. Similarly with contact info, right? I've had whole conversations with folks who have felt uncomfortable putting their phone number on a resume, which makes a lot of sense. But you want to make sure that however you best like to be contacted, that you have that information there and that it's toward the top, right? The number one thing is you want them to email you. You want them to find you. So primarily located, very clear. And what we're going to find is that this is repeatable, right? The way that you write your name on the top of your paper or wherever you want to put it wants to be something that you can repeat again and again. Branding is one of the things that we talk about often in freelance and artistic work, is that idea of what is my brand? And we could go deep dive into sort of the specifics of that and sort of branding in terms of content creation and marketing and all of that. But on the very straightforward, like user-friendly level, right? You want your stuff to look like you and to look like your other stuff, so that when somebody sees your resume and also sees your cover letter, they know that they go together, because that top of that header, the way you write your name, is the same or similar. Right? So number one, first thing on your resume, who are you? Number two, what have you done? Right? You want to lead with the work that relates to your job title in your header, right? So whatever you have picked to list as your job title. So in this case, this is my lighting and media designer resume. I'm going to lead with my lighting and media designs. This is primary experience. Depending on where you are at in your career or where you're at in this version of your career, if you're somebody who's maybe pivoting, you're going to have a variety of different amounts of experience here, and that's okay, right? What have you done is not a contest is not what have you done as compared to everybody else that you know in your life. It is not what have you done as compared to everybody in your graduating class. It is not what have you done as compared to everybody in the building, right? It's what have you done and what is your primary experience. And as part of this, we're looking for our connectors, right? It's all about connection, right? Folks say networking, which sounds like things that you would say if you were in business or car sales. But it is a lot about who you know, and not in the I need to collect people so I can get ahead sort of way, but in the we like to make art with our friends kind of way. And so the more that you can lean into connectors, the more possible connections you can make. So folks are looking at your resume to see what you have done, but they're also looking for things like, have I done that show? Have I worked at that theater? Have I worked with that person? Have I worked in that city? Right? I have indeed gotten phone calls from folks saying, I got this resume from somebody applying for a job from Greenville, South Carolina. Do you know so-and-so? And it's like, Greenville is a smaller city. I don't know everybody in the city of Greenville. And yes, in fact, I do know that person, and they're great, right? Or even as simple as, oh yeah, I've worked there. I really loved this burger place that was on High Street, right? These connectors are ways to continue your conversation. Um, the more potential connectors that you have without cluttering your resume, the more chances you have to find that shared experience. Oh, I love assassins. Um, oh, you worked at UT Opera. Were you there when James Marvel was there? Right. These are the sorts of, clearly because his name is next, right? Um, these are the sorts of things that folks are looking for, and these are the sorts of things to start laying out that groundwork of familiarity and conversation, right? Um, if you were flipping through a table of contents and you saw chapters about some of your favorite things, you're more likely to go read that chapter. After your primary experience, right, we're going to get into our supporting experience. And this is experience that informs the way that you go about your primary work. But it may not be what you do every single day, right? So for example, right, this is my lighting and media designer resume, but I include associate lighting designs. This is not my associate resume. If this were a resume for work as an associate, this would be primary experience and would move to the top, right? That bit about how you will have a different resume for every job that you apply for, because you're going to adjust things based on what you're looking at. So in this case, supporting experience, this is going to speak to more connectors. This may speak to a wider range of places that you have worked. This may speak to folks that you have worked with regularly, right? Different things to look for here. And your skills. Your skills are part of your supporting experience. These are talents that you bring. Hard skills are really useful here, things like software, consoles, certifications. It can also be a place for soft skills, right? It can, lots of folks, the old adage, right? You put things like works well with others. One of my favorites was has a wingspan of 6 feet on an electrician resume because they could reach really far. You can find different experiences like that and put in here. In a world where you are one of those folks who is pivoting or who is just starting out, your supporting experience may be larger or wider than your primary experience. And that's okay, right? That is indicative of the book that you are writing, the book of you. That is looking at sort of what your experience is, right? If I'm going to hire, say, a lighting designer, and an up-and-coming lighting designer, right? Somebody who is an emerging professional, and they don't have a ton of lighting design experience, right? Maybe a couple of shows at the top, but their supporting experience shows things like programmer, electrician, maybe it shows carpenter, assistant stage manager, right? Those tell me things like you've been around, you've helped make the work, you know how tech runs, you know how to work on a team, you have an understanding of what it takes to build a set and also to hang the lights above the set. You have an understanding of how rehearsals work or how a backstage is run, right? These are useful traits that go into the primary experience. So always thinking about not just, oh, I've only done three gigs as a stitcher, right? That's fine. What are the rest of your experiences? What are the rest of your skills? What are things that you have done to support that title of stitcher, lighting designer, what have you? Following that, you're going to put in who's vouching for you, right? This is the stamp of approval on your forehead that says, yep, that one. Somebody said that I was A-okay. This is also another set of connectors. This includes your references, right? Which you may or may not opt to put on the physical document. It is very common these days to have references listed upon request on a resume, so that you can, you're not just handing out people's phone numbers and emails all over the internet, hence why they're number signed out in this example. But it's also going to be your degrees, right? Any schooling that you've done, any classes that you've taken, any certifications that you've received, even if you didn't see it all the way to the point of getting that certificate or getting that degree, what courses have you taken? You often see in performing resumes things like, who have you learned under, right? Right? Who taught that class? that you took? Who was your vocal coach? That's somebody who is vouching for you. Awards are another space for that. That's organizations that have looked at your work and given it a stamp of approval, right? And that could be something like USITT or SETC. That could be whatever scholarship that you got in college, especially if you're a recent graduate. But you're looking for the folks who are saying that, yep, that one, because folks are looking for folks that people like, right? I want to work with folks that I enjoy. If there are lots of people who have stamped of approval this person, they might very well be somebody that I would enjoy. It seems like a lot of people have enjoyed them. Okay. So, to run that back, major questions that we ask boop, 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 on a resume. We're looking at, who am I? What have I done? And also, what have I done? And who vouches for you, right? Leaning heavily into those connectors. Following a resume, we're also looking at cover letters, right? You're still a book, still living in this book land. Your cover letter is the blurb inside of the cover, right? That little summary on the dust jacket, you've opened it up, you're like, maybe you flipped to the table of contents and gone, okay, like that sounds all right, particularly if it's a reference book. And then you flip back and you start to read that description on the inside or that description on the back. Folks who are looking at a cover letter are looking for a quick summary that contextualizes your work. Do they want to keep reading? Is this something that I want to take with me? Is this a book that I would like to take up to the counter and buy? The cover letter fills in the sentences that you may have briefly mentioned, right, or scanned over as part of the resume, but it is not a complete reproduction of your resume, right? We do not need to use the resume as an outline and the cover letter is the essay of our lives. No. Table of contents, general summary. Notes on format, right? There are very specific and traditional standards for business letter formatting, right? For professional letter formatting. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I have memories of being in middle school and somebody telling me exactly how many times I need to hit enter or return between my name and the salutation, right? No one is going to be counting the number of times you hit enter between paragraphs. Find what works for you, as long as it is clear, consistent, and put together, right? Again, you want it to match, you want it to look like it is yours. And you want to make sure that it is easy to read, right? This is a document that is going to speak for you when you are not there to speak. So it needs to be able to carry itself. Some highlights that I have found, right? What is this? It is helpful to me to put, I would like to think that anybody who happens to be passing by would see that it is a letter format and that is what it is, but you never know, and that's okay. Some of the things from traditional letter writing that I still enjoy putting in here, right? Who sent this and who is it going to, with physical addresses. I no longer live at that address and we no longer work in that building. But they were there and this was not physically mailed, which it would have been in the time when you would put addresses on them. But in terms of setting up the stage, I've always found that to be helpful. A salutation, something that says, who is this from and hello? The content of the letter, a thank you, and a very quick closing, right? These are pieces that are super useful and very standard, and ways to sort of break down this document. Hey, look, it's the same, except it's not. The first question of this is still, who are you? As a document that is being emailed to, sent to, handed to somebody that they will review in your absence, it is important for you to put your name on the top of your paper. So we see a similar formatting style to the resume, right? If you were to put these pieces of paper next to each other, they are very, very similar. Although you'll notice a title change, right? first we were looking at my lighting and media design resume, right? This was a cover letter for an educational position. So the title changes, right? Artist educator, because we're not just looking at work as a designer, right? Now we're looking at a letter that is about the art and the education. Likewise, this pairs with a different document, right? Not the resume that is listed as lighting and media designer. It pairs with the documents that I'll say artist educator, if that's a resume, if that's a CV, whatever that, if that's a statement of purpose, the list goes on when you're applying for educational jobs. But the format, still the same. Contact info, still important. How to find work, still important. And when you're thinking about how to set this up, right? Okay, so I know that I have to put my name at the top of my paper. I know that I want it to be consistent, which means I need to like it because I'm gonna see it a lot. You want to set up a style that is suitable for your style, right? You want it to look kind of like you, which may include asking yourself things like, how do I want my work self to be perceived, right? Am I straight lines? Am I organic shapes? Am I black and white? Am I in a color palette, right? These are different things that you can think about as you're thinking about how you want to go about your work. And that will lean into maybe your artist statement, right? Something that says, this is why, right? Ask yourself this. Let me start there. Ask yourself this. Why? Why have I done this to myself? Why is this what I am choosing to do with my time and my energy? Because that is going to help inform how you shape this, right? If your work persona, who you are, your best artist self, your best performer self, your best manager self, right? Your best work you, your favorite work you, is very whimsical, right? If you're looking perhaps to apply at a lot of maybe children's theaters, maybe work at children's museums, maybe the circus, who's to say, you might find that you want to put a little bit of whimsy into this, a little bit of color, a little bit of shape, right? Things like that. If you're leading from a place of strong organization, right? If you're leading from a place of being very, very organized or very put together, or with the semblance that somebody might believe that you are put together until they learn otherwise, might be why this looks the way that it does. You're gonna start there, right? But play around with it. It'll take some time to find. It will also take some time to find the tool that you like most to build it. When I started, Canva didn't exist, so all of my materials, headers, and things were built in Word because that was what I had access to. And then that became Google Docs, and then that has become parts of Canva or InDesign, or right, the tools that you are using may adapt and grow. The style will adapt and grow with it. So play around with it, see what works. Try it for a while. If after a while you decide that you don't like it, try something new. Notes on style. So, header, love it. It's straightforward. Who am I? Next question. Why are you here? And this is going to be your first paragraph of your letter, right? You're going to find your format. You're going to lay out the letter how you are interested in laying it out. And then you're going to immediately start with, how did I get here? Why are you receiving this letter? Because the first thing somebody wants to know when they open this is why. So things that are good to highlight, right? Your name. Again, it does not hurt to say your name more than once. It's at the top, it's here at the beginning, it'll also be at the bottom. If they have forgotten between the top of the page, the salutation, and the bottom of the page, then they have 3 places to remind themselves of who you are. Also, that a lot of folks will not recognize the header as readable information, right? They will read it, but in terms of reading comprehension, putting it here in a body of a paragraph then makes it part of the content. And they will associate your name and your title with the content. So name, title, what are you applying for? What is that job, especially if a place has multiple job openings? And this is very true of often like summer stocks, or companies that are hiring seasonally who are looking for electricians and sound technicians and stitchers and run crew, and right, there might be a whole host of jobs that they are looking for. Pick one. Pick one. Um, if you are looking at more than one, have a very good reason for more than one. Uh, you do not want to list any job that you're offering, even if that is what you have in the back of your mind. I will do anything in a theater. Happy to be working in a theater. Um, so I will do anything, which is a very excellent and energetic attitude. But folks who are reading these want to be able to know what they're looking at and why, and to know that you have put some thought into it, right? Um, so pick one. If in the interview, right, which we get to after they've decided they love the table of contents, the summary sounds exactly like what they're looking for, and we get into the interview phase, uh, then maybe you open up that I'm interested in a lot of, I would love to be an electrician. I also have experience as a carpenter. I've also done some work as an ASM, right? You can let them know that you are flexible, while also letting them know that you are thoughtful, right? What are you applying for, and where did you hear about this job? Um, in this case, right, I saw it online. Double bonus points if the reason why you're writing this letter is because somebody sent it to you, particularly if somebody within the hiring body sent it to you, because that's another connector. If I heard about this job from this person who works in your space, or from this designer who has worked with you, or so and so said that I should apply, right? I heard about this job from. That's a really big indicator. That's a really excellent place to slide a connector. Alternatively, I saw this job posting initially in this alumni group, right? Also a connector. So thinking about how do we get those in? Short, sweet, to the point. 2-3 sentences. And then we're getting back into what have you done, right? Much like the resume, who am I? What have I done? And like we were saying, we're not rehashing everything that we have put in the resume. We don't need to list. We already have the list. The list was on the table of contents, was as part of that resume. Now we're giving context to that list. We're going to highlight the things that we are most excited about, or the things that are most pertinent to the job that we're applying for. And we're going to offer explanation for anything that might need explained or uplifted, or if you were the designer, producer, co-lead on this really cool educational project that you did with a large group of people, right? That just by putting director on your resume doesn't quite encompass it. This is a great place to give a little extra context to that. So things that we want to include: why would we hire you? What sparks your interest? Why this job? Why this place? And any information that they ask for specifically. And you will see that often in job postings, or places that we are sending our materials to if there is an ask for it, right? And usually we see cover letters when somebody has sent a very specific, you're applying to a specific job posting. Your resume, you may just hand out to people. Your resume may be part of a cold call email that you can send to producers when you're looking for jobs. Your resume is something that is easy to carry around and hand out at job fairs or job events. It's something that can speak for itself. The cover letter usually comes with a formal ask. So why this job, why this place becomes important. And if they have specific information that they have said, include this in your cover letter. Similarly, include this in the subject of your email, right? Those instructions are really important. They're looking to see that folks can follow direction. It's sort of a sneaky way to slide that in there, but make sure that if there is anything in that posting or anything that you have been instructed to include, that you are very clear in that. Also making clear that you know a little bit about what you're applying for and where you're applying, right? When you get those emails from, I don't know, like you get on those email lists and it looks almost like it's a personal email because they've changed the name of the email sender to be an actual person, and so you open it, but it's actually a form letter that they've clearly sent out to, all 200 people on their list. I feel like I get those a lot around election season, right? You get a lot of those. So when we think about those, it's like I don't really respond strongly to a form email. You want to make sure that your cover letter doesn't feel like a form, although you want it to be somewhat formulaic because you don't want to be stressed out when you're writing it. You don't want to have to labor over a cover letter. It should be fairly easy. It's not a document that you're going to hang up on the wall and prize for the rest of your life. So find ways to slide in those nuggets of very specific information about the job, about the workplace, about the city, about the work that they do that you're excited about, and then move on, right? And then we're going to wrap it up and then move on. In summary, once you've hit the highlights, close it, right? One page. This does not have to be a long document. You just need to get it out. Hey, here are my highlights. Here are the highlights about why I think you should hire me. Here's a little bit of a wrap up. And thank you so much, right? In all caps with great emphasis, don't forget the thank you. Always, always, always thank folks. The number one most useful tool, one of the number one most useful tools in your professional package is a thank you note. And that can be a physical thank you note. That could be an email. That can at least be making sure that at the end of the letter it says thank you. When you're done talking on the interview, you say thank you. A thank you goes a really long way in terms of human to human contact, right? Thank you for your time because I know your time is important. Really excellent. So, who are you? Why are you here? What have you done? Wrap it up, right? In, out, done. And when I say, and thinking about that formula, right, as you're building these, your resume has a structure you're going to build, you're going to alter it, you're going to save that as a new copy, right? Here is my lighting designer resume. Here's my media designer resume. Here's my lighting and media designer resume. They're all going to look similar. They're going to be different boxes that are sort of shifted around in different orders. Maybe one gets a little bit longer, maybe one gets shorter, right? Adjusting what you're putting in there and in what order. But you already have that stencil, right? You've already got your stencil made up. You just move things around inside of it. Similarly, for your cover letter, you can set up most of this as a default. Somewhere in my inbox or my draft file of my email, I still have the formula that I used for cover letters for years and years and years that maybe I do still use. That includes all of these pieces, right? And some of that intermediary information. My highlights might adjust slightly depending on what the job is for, but some of those highlights stay the same, right? So maybe there are brackets of insert information about the job here. But the statement about the work that I do maybe hasn't changed, or maybe it adjusts. But think about that. What are the ways that I can make this easy on myself so that I can repeat it over and over and over again? Great. Resumes, check. Cover letters, check. Purpose of a portfolio. You are still a book. Your portfolio are the pictures, charts, graphs, and et cetera, and captions, right? These are the fun things to look at, right? So I've picked up the book, I've opened the table of contents, I've scanned it and gone, that does seem like useful information. I've popped open the summary, I've scanned through the summary and gone, yeah, all right, still interested. And then the next step that you do is you start flipping through the pages, right? What's in here? And you're likely going to stop on things like pictures, charts, graphs, things that you can quickly glean information from, can see the content of the work, the content of the study, whatever it might be. Not in its totality. This is not the complete picture. This is not the full dissertation about the work that I do. But it is enough to give you an idea of what this was about. And it is enough to support the thesis of the book, right? It is enough to say, hello, my name is Miranda DeBusk. I am a lighting and media designer. Let me show you lighting and media designs. One of the first things that you're going to think about when it comes to visual elements of your work, in this case, I've got a design style portfolio because my work is as a designer. As an educator, that's going to look a little bit different. As a manager, that's going to look different. As a technician, that's going to look different. As a performer, that's going to look different. So first you're going to start with your statement of purpose, your artist statement. Who are you? Why am I doing this? And we can see here, I have actual words that pull that out. Your portfolio is the data that supports your story. And what you put into it will depend on who you are. I am not an excellent graphic artist or artist with physical media. That's not my strong suit. Um, I'm but I am and have always felt pretty comfortable with words. So I have gone through the phase of putting actual words into my portfolio, um, because that is something that I feel like I am good at. What I don't put in there are napkin sketches or renderings, because anything that I have ever rendered is not something that I really want people to look at, right? So think about it that way. You get to put in what you think best supports your argument for you. Also, right, looking at, make sure the mouse is on the right screen, right? We see again this variation on a theme. I know that this is an older screenshot because at some point, right, and this is how this is going to move and adapt with you as a person, I changed from projection designer to media designer. There was a point in life where the majority of content that was being digitally expressed on stage was almost entirely at the levels that I was working in, done with a projector, right? So it was projection design. As technology changes, as the world changes, as we get to places like putting LED screens on stage, or having other forms of, you can inset TVs into sets, things like that. It's no longer just about projectors. It's in fact the media, the digital media of it all. So that changes, the title changes, the materials change. If I were still using this PDF portfolio, I would also change the header here to match. The next thing, right, as we're thinking about our visual support, are the images, right? What are the visual supporting tools that we are using? The same way that no one wants to see every picture of every meal that you ate while you were on vacation, no one wants to see every picture of every show you have ever done. 3 to 4 pictures is a good amount. If you have 6 phenomenal pieces of supporting visual evidence, go for it. Think about it, right? How much space do I have? Is this something that is being printed? Is this something that is being viewed on a screen? How much screen space do I have? Is this something that I am putting together that has to have a certain limit of the number of pages? What does that mean in terms of needing to adjust the size of my visual evidence? Consider that when you're considering how many images you want to put in. You also want to make sure that things are in focus, that they are bright enough to see, that they are visually accurate, which may or may not mean that they have been edited, right? You want to think about, does this image accurately reflect what I saw on stage, or accurately reflect the work that I have done? If that means running it through and brightening it up because the screen is different than the eyeball, so be it. Not recommended is changing the entire color scheme of the image, right? That is not accurate to the work that was done. So is it visually accurate? And does it communicate the vibe of the moment, right? Or does it communicate the piece of information I want it to communicate, right? As a lighting designer, that's usually the vibes. We live in vibes. We live and breathe vibes. As a technical director, right? I need this to communicate the clarity of my information. I need this to communicate the detail of the drawings. I need this to communicate the safety of my work. So thinking about, does this communicate what I need it to support? And have I selected very carefully what pieces of information do that? Now, that is not to say that you throw out everything that does not fit into this particular document, right? Keep an archive. You may in fact run into somebody who sees your supporting evidence and goes, oh yes, that drafting was quite good. I'd love to see the rest of that packet. And you want to be able to go pull that out of somewhere and present it, right? Email a PDF, scan something in, right? Figure out how to pull that out and show it to whoever is looking for it. But that doesn't mean that it's necessarily, that you necessarily need the entire packet inside of the document that you would like people to flip through, right? The book that they are flipping through. Think about format, right? As you're thinking about how you're presenting this. Number one, remember your connectors. And we see that again and again and again, right? In the resume, we have connectors. In the cover letter, we have connectors. In the portfolio, we have connectors. We want folks to run into things that they recognize. Title, company, collaborators. Not only is it kind to make sure that you are listing your collaborators because their work is visible here too, but it is also helpful, right? You never know who has run into someone on your document, right? You never know. One of my favorite things, a dear friend of mine went through his entire online portfolio on his website and hyperlinked all of the designers, so that if you liked something that you saw on his sound design website, you could click on the name of the set designer or the lighting designer or the costume designer, and it would take them to their website, which I find to be fascinating and very kind. And a step above and beyond as compared to what folks' expectations are, but it certainly makes him somebody that folks want to work with. You also want to make sure that your format supports the shows that you want to discuss, right? You don't want to put anything in any of your materials that you don't want to talk about, right? If there's a show that you did 3, 4, 5 years ago that you would just rather not, that maybe you don't feel like you really loved, right? It could be as simple as I didn't really have a good time, or I didn't think that I produced my best work. Great, don't put it. Don't list it there. If you don't feel like you can talk about it in a positive and uplifting way, if you're not ready yet to sort of work through that, if you haven't processed through that yet, don't worry about it. I think about this a lot with like thesis shows in graduate school. Something that you've put all of your heart and soul into that cannot possibly live up to the full expectation of how much it is important to you because it is a show and does not know anything other than the fact that it is a show. Like any other show, it does not know it is your most important show. Maybe once you're done with that, you're not ready to talk about it immediately. Maybe you need some time to process that big old life chapter that just happened. So in a couple of months, you can talk about it. I don't think I talked about my thesis show or put it in my portfolio for a solid 3 months after I graduated because I needed to not look at it for a minute because I'd looked at it for a long time. So make sure that the format is supporting all of the things that you're doing and is uplifting the shows that you want to talk about. There's also paperwork, right? I have all these pretty pictures because I think that pretty pictures uplift my work the best. But there are lots of people who make really excellent paperwork, and having paperwork to support your endeavors is really important, and especially if you're in a field that is particularly paperwork forward. So you want to make sure that you're including documents that support the work that you are doing, which may include light plots, which may include build drawings, which may include any number of things. But you want to make sure that you're following similar formatting. You want to make sure that everything is legible, especially if you're compiling this into something that you can attach as a document or that you're uploading online, right? You want to make sure that there's nothing proprietary inside of it. There are some things for certain producing companies that you may or may not be able to share widely. And you want to be select, but be complete, right? You want to make sure that you're giving a clear view enough to understand what they are looking at, right? Don't just sort of crop out 3 lines of a piece of paperwork. What is this piece of paperwork? What am I looking at? Why is it here? But also, I don't need to see your entire stage management binder for every single show, right? Be select. Think about it. And all of this is often in service of getting toward an interview, right? You are no longer a book. Congratulations. You're a great book, and you are also now a content creator on Book Talk. And you are recommending the book that is you. You are now standing there holding your cover up like this, right? Talking about how great this book is. You've been picked up off the shelf, checked the blurb inside the cover, taken a look at that table of contents, flipped through the pictures, and now I think I'm going to buy the book. I think I'm going to take it. This interview is a way to get into that. Or Reverse, you go to something like a job fair, you're doing the hustle. They haven't looked at the table of contents. They haven't read the blurb, but you are convincing that person behind that table or behind that email that they definitely need to pick up that book. And I have personally been influenced by the internet to buy books that have changed my life, right? So be the book that will change their lives. Things to consider about an interview. You want to know what you want to talk about, and this doesn't change between being somebody who is interviewing before they've seen the book or interviewing after they've seen the book, right? You want to know what you're talking about. You want to have your script. It's going to be a loose script. You want to be able to riff on it, but it's your story, and you want to lead that, right? Walking up to somebody with your materials and saying, "What do you want to see?" Is something to be useful in your pocket in case somebody is, as you're interviewing, right? Different people interview in different styles. There are some folks who have very specific questions they're going to ask you. There are also folks who are going to say, talk to me, right? You want to be able to walk them through your highlights, right? This is where setting up your artist statement, your thesis statement as a book, you want to know what that is, and you want to have your sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the supporting evidence that leads up to that, right? Your traditional 5-paragraph essay. I am a lighting and media designer. Here's evidence number 1, here's evidence number 2, here's evidence number 3, and this is a 15-minute interview, so that's all I'm going to get to. So I hit my top 3, thank you so much, goodbye, right? It also means that if you are driving the bus, that you are in control of how that evidence is presented. Really, really useful. Also can be a structure that can help you feel more confident in interviews. Be prepared to know that there are folks who will ask specific questions or direct you in other ways. But if you know what you're about, then you are in control, right? You know that you are showing the best that you possibly can. You want to know a bit about the person that you're talking to. You want to know your audience. Like the number one thing that we do in so many ways is knowing our audience. So you want to do a little bit of research. You want to Google them. And that's true of just about anybody that you're going to work with. And this goes back to that asterisk of a website can be handy because you want to be able to be found. And that doesn't have to be a full portfolio website. That could be, I found folks based on bios that are listed on theaters' websites. A LinkedIn profile, the website of their day job, right? The school that they work for. But being able to find out some information about folks can be really helpful in deciding how you want to lead that conversation. It's another structure that can be useful because you're not just walking in going, I don't know anything, right? The scary thing is sitting down at a table and going, I don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know what they're looking for. I don't know what they do, right? If you can know a little bit about the company and or the interviewer, right? You have that awareness, that settling in yourself that says, okay, I know I am not walking into this completely empty-handed. And you're never walking into it empty-handed because you always have your work and the great things that you do. But as an extra boost, right? And it goes a long way in that person-to-person contact, right? The person on the other side of the table feels known, you feel known, this is a good connector. This is a good relationship builder. Third on the list is stay positive, right? And this goes back to that idea of don't talk about anything that you're not ready to talk about or you don't want to talk about. We're not looking at the things that didn't work. There were challenges and opportunities. We are not looking at having a limited budget. I was constrained by a limited budget. I strategically utilized my resources, right? Were my resources abundant? No. Is that what we're going to get into? Nope. We are going to turn all of this back into the learning opportunity that it was, or we're going to live in the world of the positive elements of what it is. Because that's going to keep the conversation from tilting toward the negative, right? Once we start to tilt toward the negative, we may find ourselves falling into a negative spiral, which is not a positive interaction, right? It's not a building interaction, right? It feels very down. It's negative. So always think about, as you're planning out your story, right? This is who I am. Here's my supporting evidence, 1, 2, 3. Make sure that your supporting evidence, that you have a plan for how to talk about it in the reframe, right? We all do hard things. Theater is hard. We work really long hours. Performance in general works really long hours. The arts work long hours. There's a lot going on. If we can live in the positive, we're going to leave a positive impression. It's also going to feel better to talk about, right? When you're talking about things that went wrong or things that you feel poorly about, you don't feel good when you are talking, right? You want to feel like your favorite self. You want to feel good. And that leads into believe in yourself, right? If you can talk about the positives, if you can uplift, if you can stay in this world of I am a great book, you will continue to build on that, right? The second guessing, the not believing in yourself, right? There's not somebody else in that seat to lift you up in that moment, right? You need to believe in you. Now, there are tricks to help you believe in you. And here's an exercise that I like to do. I'm not going to make us do it. I'm not entirely sure how successful it would be on live stream. I normally do it in a classroom setting. But you can take it with you, and I give you a couple of ways to adapt it in different versions, right? But a hype exercise. So before you get into the interview, right, maybe the morning of, maybe the night before, maybe you do it a couple of times throughout the week before, you want to, step one, say something nice about yourself. If you are in a place where you don't feel like you have something nice to say about yourself, call somebody. Call your mom, call your best friend, call your hairdresser, call the person that you sit next to in class, call whoever that you can think of, who you have a positive relationship with, and ask them to say something nice, right? And then write it down. Repeat this multiple times if you need to, right? Until you have either a bank of nice things that you can pull from, or you can generate them for yourself. Both are perfectly valid. So you're going to say something nice about yourself. Step two, you're going to say something nice that someone who cares about you would say, right? So this might be an addendum on the thing that the person you called said. This might be, if you're doing it solo, here's the nice thing about me. Here is something that my aunt would say about me, right? That is positive. If your aunt would not say positive things, don't think about your aunt. Whoever you insert, they like you. Because you are likable, because you are a great book, right? The exercise with other people, if you're, say, in a group setting, if you're doing a job interview at like a job fair and you've got folks around you, is then to look around at the people around you and say nice things. The other version might be, if you are on your own, to look around the train car, the sidewalk, the room that you are in, Instagram, right? Wherever you might have contact with other people, and think or say nice things about the folks that you are seeing, right? This is going to trigger in your brain a sense of positivity of self from others, external positivity out to others, right? And you're just going to build on that. She has great shoes. I love their hair. I really like that coat, right? They have great style. Wow, that person's walking with a lot of confidence. Oh my gosh, look at the cute cat that they just got, right? Whatever it is, the positive flow of information and things. And then you're just let that keep building and building and building. The fun thing, if you're in a group of people, or if you're at home hyping yourself up before the interview, right, is to then very loudly say them all at once, right? Just get it all out. Vocalizing is helpful, especially if it's an interview prep, and especially if you're in a space like you're going to call into an interview on Zoom. And so you need to get this out before you hit open on that Zoom window, right? Do this exercise in front of your computer, and at the end of it, just, I'm awesome, right? Or I have really great pants, or my cat is the best, right? Like whatever it is, say it loud, proud, get the energy out, right? Because we are internally cycling positives, we are receiving positives, and we are exuding positives. And we are doing it with force, right? With positive force. And that mixture is going to help you feel better in this interview, and it's going to read as somebody that folks want to be around, right? This is that exuding of positivity and that sense of internal positivity really lends itself to folks being interested um, and connected, right? It's another connector. Try that the next time you're going into an interview or the next time you're just feeling down. It can be very fun. It can be super fun in a group of friends. And always remember that you are a great book. You are the best book of them all. And don't let anybody tell you any differently. Uh, and that's what I have for our friends on the live stream. We're going to shift into a Q&A session now. So I'm going to stop this live stream. But thanks for anybody who joined us in the YouTube. And we'll see you next time.